I spent 43 years as a hospice nurse, and I can tell you something most people don't want to hear. I've held the hands of over 2,000 people in their final days, and almost every single one of them said the same thing at the end. My name is Margaret Chen. I'm 88 years old, and I need to tell you what I learned before it's too late for you too. When I was 24, fresh out of nursing school, I thought death was about bodies failing. I thought my job was to manage pain, adjust morphine drips, and keep people comfortable while they waited for the inevitable. I was so young then, so focused on the clinical side of things. But there was this woman, Mrs. Eleanor Pritchard, who changed everything for me in my second month on the ward. She was 71, dying of pancreatic cancer, and she had maybe a week left when I met her. Her family rarely visited. Maybe once every few days her daughter would stop by for 20 minutes, sit in the corner checking her watch, making small talk about the weather. Mrs. Pritchard never complained about it, but I could see it in her eyes every time that door opened, and it wasn't who she hoped for. One evening I was checking her vitals and she grabbed my wrist, not hard, but firm enough that I stopped what I was doing. She looked at me and said, "I spent 30 years angry at my sister over a dining room table." I must have looked confused because she gave this sad little laugh and explained that when their mother died, they'd fought over who would get this antique table their grandmother had brought from Poland. The argument got so heated they stopped speaking. 30 years, 3 decades of holidays, birthdays, grandchildren being born, all of it happening separately because neither of them would pick up the phone first. "She died 6 years ago," Mrs. Pritchard told me. "Heart attack. I found out from her neighbor. I never got to tell her I was sorry. I never got to tell her I didn't even want that stupid table. I just wanted to be right." She squeezed my hand tighter. "Do you know what I'd give right now to have one more Sunday dinner with her? To hear her laugh at my jokes? I'd burn that table myself if I could have her back for an hour." I went home that night, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I called my own sister, who I'd been giving the cold shoulder to for 3 months, over something I can't even remember now. We talked for 2 hours. I thought Mrs. Pritchard's story was unique, that she was just one person who'd made one particular mistake. But then it kept happening. Different people, different stories, but the same core regret emerging over and over like a drumbeat I couldn't unhear. There was James, a 67-year-old attorney who'd built $1 million practice and barely knew his own children's middle names. He told me he could recite case law from 1952 but couldn't tell me what his daughter studied in college. "I thought I had time," he said. "I thought once I made partner, once I paid off the house, once I had enough saved, then I'd slow down and be the dad I always meant to be." But the goalposts kept moving, and now she's 34, and I'm a stranger to her. There was Patricia, a former executive who spent her entire career climbing ladders in banking. She told me about missing her son's plays, his baseball games, his graduation, because there was always a meeting or a deal closing or a client dinner. "I have a corner office in a building downtown," she whispered to me 3 days before she died. "My name's on a plaque in the lobby, and you know what? Nobody cares. Nobody's visiting me to talk about quarterly earnings. My son came by yesterday, and we sat in silence because we don't know how to talk to each other. I traded his childhood for a title on a door. Month after month, year after year, I kept hearing it. I heard it from the wealthy and the poor, from people who'd traveled the world and people who'd never left their hometown, from those who'd achieved everything society told them to want and those who'd struggled their whole lives. The details were different, but the center was always the same. They wished they'd spent more time with the people they loved. They wished they'd said the things that mattered. They wished they'd put down their pride, their ambition, their fear, their anger, and just been present with the people who would have loved them if they'd let them. I remember this one man, Thomas, who was 82 when he came to us. Lung cancer. He'd been a truck driver for 45 years, spent most of his life on the road. He told me he'd seen 48 states, every major city, driven through landscapes most people only see in photographs. "But I missed my kids growing up," he said. "I've got all these memories of highways and truck stops and sunrises over mountains, and my kids have memories of waiting for a dad who was never there. My daughter got married, and I'd been on the road so much she asked her uncle to walk her down the aisle because it felt more honest." He stared at the ceiling for a long time. "I saw the whole country, and I missed the only journey that mattered." You start to see patterns when you do this work as long as I did. Nobody, and I mean nobody, ever told me they wished they'd worked more hours. Nobody wished they'd spent more time at the office, more time checking emails, more time in meetings. Nobody wished they'd held on to grudges longer or stayed angry at people who hurt them. Nobody wished they'd been more careful with their love or more guarded with their vulnerability. What they wished is that they'd forgiven faster, that they'd been braver about saying, "I love you," that they'd taken the trip with their spouse instead of waiting for retirement, that they'd gone to their kids' recital instead of sending an apology text, that they'd called their parents more, that they'd let people see them, really see them, instead of hiding behind walls of pride or fear or the belief that there would always be more time. I watched a 49-year-old mother of 3 die, knowing her kids thought she was always too busy for them. I watched a grandfather weep because he'd been so focused on leaving an inheritance that he forgot to leave memories. I watched a woman who'd spent her whole life keeping score of who wronged her realize in her final week that she'd weaponized her own isolation and called it self-protection. The thing about deathbeds is they strip away all the stories we tell ourselves, all the justifications, all the somedays, all the reasons we give for why we're not living the way we know we should. When you're dying, your career doesn't comfort you, your bank account doesn't hold your hand, your pride doesn't keep you warm. The grudge you held for 20 years doesn't show up to say goodbye. What matters, the only thing that ends up mattering, is love. The love you gave, the love you received, the love you were too afraid to express. I had a patient once, Catherine, who told me she'd spent her entire adult life waiting for her mother to apologize for things that happened when she was a teenager. Her mother had been critical, demanding, hard to please, so Catherine kept her distance. Minimal phone calls, obligatory holiday visits, a relationship maintained out of duty, not love. Her mother died when Catherine was 56, and Catherine came to our ward 10 years later with ovarian cancer. "I never got the apology," she told me, "and now I realize I was waiting for words she didn't know how to say, punishing her for not being different than she was capable of being. I missed knowing her. I missed letting her know me, all because I needed to be right more than I needed to be connected." Somewhere in my 3rd decade of this work, it started changing me. I became less patient with my own excuses. I stopped waiting for perfect moments to tell people I loved them. I started saying yes to dinners even when I was tired. I called friends I'd lost touch with. I forgave people who never apologized because I realized forgiveness was something I did for myself, not for them. I stopped treating time like it was infinite. I'm 88 now, and I've outlived most of the people I cared for. I've outlived my husband of 42 years, most of my siblings, many of my friends. And I can tell you from this side of a long life that the moments that matter are so much smaller and simpler than we think they are. They're not the promotions or the achievements or the things we accumulate. They're the Tuesday morning when you made pancakes with your daughter, the phone call with your brother that went an hour longer than you planned, the time you drove 6 hours to surprise your aging parents for no reason, the apology you gave even though it scared you, the afternoon you canceled your plans to sit with someone who needed you. We spend so much of our lives preparing for some future version of ourselves who will finally have permission to be happy, to be present, to be loving. We tell ourselves we'll reconnect with that friend after we finish this project. We'll spend more time with family once we get through this busy season. We'll say the things we need to say when the timing is better. But I've watched enough people die to know that perfect timing is a myth we hide behind. There is only now, this moment, this conversation, this chance to choose connection over comfort, vulnerability over self-protection, presence over productivity. If you take anything from my 43 years of watching people leave this world, let it be this. The people who died peacefully, the ones who seemed ready, the ones who could let go without desperation clinging to their eyes, they were the ones who'd loved openly. They were the ones who'd said the hard things, who'd forgiven the unforgivable, who'd shown up even when it was inconvenient. They were the ones who'd built lives full of moments that mattered, not monuments to their own importance. Your people won't remember your job title. They won't remember how clean you kept your house or how impressive your resume was. They'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember if you were there. They'll remember if you listened. They'll remember if you loved them in a way they could feel. I'm telling you this now because I won't be here much longer myself, and I don't want to carry this knowledge to my grave without passing it on. You still have time. Not infinite time. None of us do, but you have today. You have this hour. You have the ability right now to pick up the phone, to say what needs saying, to show up for someone, to choose love over whatever story you've been telling yourself about why you can't. Don't wait until you're where my patients were, looking back at a life half lived because you were too afraid or too busy or too proud to love the way you wanted to be loved. The biggest tragedy I've witnessed isn't death itself. It's people dying while they're still alive, going through the motions, waiting for someday, keeping their hearts locked away until it's too late to do anything but regret it. That's what I've learned from 2,000 deathbeds. That's the pattern I can't unsee. That's the truth that changed my life and I hope changes yours. Love people while you can. Forgive while there's still time. Show up even when it's hard. Be known even when it's scary. Because at the end, that's all there is. The love we gave and the love we let in. Everything